Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is episode 131 with your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology. So today we're going to talk about the lunar eclipse, as it is, of course, eclipse season now. This lunar eclipse is going to take place on November 19th, and it's at 27 degrees of Taurus, very late degrees of Taurus, conjunct the fixed star Algol. So I'm going to dispel some of the perhaps fear that people have been talking about. Oh my God, Algol, and talk about the chart of Joe Biden, and maybe if we have time to look at Jill's chart too. But Joe, if you go look up Algol, you'll be scared to death, probably. So please, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Algol is a fixed star, and it definitely has a reputation, borne out in history and by example, of being a very heavy, hard star. It's called like the demon star and all this, very scary connotations. Honestly, just about all the fixed stars have these very heavy-handed, fatalistic delineations that you typically find. So maybe we need some really cool feminist person like Alice Sparkly Cat to like rewrite all those. I would love to do that. I had her on my show a few months ago. She's such an amazing, incredibly brilliant visionary soul. She also wrote a book called Post-Colonial Astrology and looking at the planets in this radically different way. So maybe she can take on fixed stars. I don't know. Confidential to Alice. Peace out. So anyway, but yeah, Algol is very, yes, it's been associated throughout history with a lot, wars and a lot of very, very heavy, wars, violence, pestilence, just all the nasty stuff, and has it borne out? Yes, wars and World War II and the French Revolution and all of these, very, very prominent with Algol, very prominent in many of these charts. The Reign of Terror, which happened after the French Revolution, with all those beheadings, the guillotine. It's like, oh my God, right? It's really, really heavy. Yes, there's evidence for that. But I want to take us on a little journey today where we're going to look at other sides of this. And so this is a kind of a very deep, radically reimagining of Algol. So it's not that it's denying all of those things and the propensity for those to happen, but we want to look and kind of pull the lens out a little more. So we're gonna talk about that, and just to say that with the lunar eclipse conjunct Algol, the moon is actually 1 degree past Algol. So this lunar eclipse may really be about having witnessed difficult things, the pandemic, right? Very obvious. And such, and then how we deal with these things and what needs to change as we have moved and are moving through these major changes. Certainly with Taurus, Taurus rules the food supply, the supply chain. We've already seen it in the news about, the higher prices or scarcity or all of these issues, scarcity versus hoarding and inflation and higher prices for food and the supply chain of things getting delayed because the boats are sitting out there and there's not enough people to, just get the cargo ships unloaded. You probably read about all that. So yes, that's definitely at play. And perhaps this lunar eclipse is giving us the opportunity to say, okay, who are we in relation to? It's having a long, hard look at, given these challenges that have been happening since the pandemic and even long before the pandemic. We think about Taurus, the environment, the earth, all the things we've done to the earth, the plastic packaging and such, and animal factory farming, and all of these very heavy, wasteful, difficult practices that have really harmed the earth and the earth's balance and such, and the environment in general. And how do we now reinvent? How do we start again? And having all of those things come, we're at this breaking point, right? Very like full moon, right? Here's all these horrific practices and ways of being that are coming to the surface, the climate change, et cetera, right? And then how do we move with them, and how do we reinvent ourselves and our homes and our the changes in environment and the changes in material wealth and availability, and how do we roll with all this? That might be a question to ask ourselves, and depending on where it occurs in your chart is the area of our life where we want to really take on these deep questions. This is the first eclipse in what will be the Taurus-Scorpio axis that'll happen over the next year and a half, roughly. Next month, our companion eclipse, the solar eclipse, is going to be in Sagittarius. So this one is starting to move into the Taurus-Scorpio axis, but we have one more solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So that's going to finish out our Gemini-Sagittarius eclipse cycle, which won't come back. The Gem-Sag eclipse cycle will come back in 9 years, where Sag will be in the North Node and Gemini will be in the South Node. And then 18.6 years from now, it will come back with Gemini North Node, Sag South Node. So that closes that out. But anyway, back to the lunar eclipse. So November 19th. Here it comes. And this, let's go look at, I wanted to call attention to a few things. Let's maybe talk a little bit about, well, we'll finish up talking about Algol here. And then just to say that I see, like I said, you can get scared to death over Algol, or you can be empowered, like anything in astrology. So if we look at the myth and the mythology behind Algol, Algol was, is from the word Algol is from the Arabic Ras al-Ghul, which is, of course, the Arab world carried astrology after the Romans, destroyed all these records and such, and carrying it into the Middle Ages, they kept the flame alive. Amazing astrologers and all. So some of these fixed stars have these Arabic names, like Ras al-Ghul. The term ghoul, like a Halloween ghoul, there's the etymology, right? This ghoulish thing. Algol, or Algol as we know it, Algol, is, like I said, it's very, heavy-handed. Some people, this is the most evil and violent and dangerous star in the heavens. And of course that's, but Ras al-Ghul translates as the demon's head. And in the Hebrews called it Rosh ha-Satan, the head of Satan. The Greeks was the severed head of Medusa. It was the head, the Gorgon Medusa, who was horrible to look at. What happened to Medusa? Well, she was this really beautiful temple goddess, and she decided to have sex in the temple. And of course, this was not okay with what's her name? Oh, blanking out. Hold on. I can't remember. Hold on a second. She got her head got cut off, right? It was terrible things happening. Where, let's see, hold on just a second. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, Medusa. Here's the Algol story, and this is something that I feel is, because it's just interesting that it's being the lunar eclipse is conjunct this. Maybe it's like time to reinvent the story and look at it in a new way. Well, the story of Medusa is that she was this beautiful priestess, a priestess of Athena, and she had sex in the temple, and she got cursed because she broke her vow of celibacy. And so she was punished. Athena punished her, and she turned her into a horrible looking hag, and she made her hair like all full of snakes, like snake hair, and her skin, she just looked like a ghoul, right? And so if you looked at Medusa, you were automatically turned into stone. Well, she goes tells Perseus, go kill this woman. So he defeated her. He cut her head off, right? So you see these often the Greek statues of Perseus, holding this head with snakes and horrible looking, the eyes and the very, very dramatic, right? And he actually used her head as a weapon to turn enemies into stone, and he gave it back to Athena. So the image of Medusa's head was placed on Athena's own armor, like or on her shield. So you see the perhaps, you know, where I'm going here is that, you know, here's a woman who gets punished, for a beautiful woman that gets punished for being who she is and having sex, and how this, you know, warrior Athena, you know, having her killed, it's like that part of the feminine psyche that feels other women are, you know, they're jealous and possessive. So there's all these dark qualities about the divine female, the shadow side, as I see it. And then, you know, consorting with guys who fully agree and cuts her head off, you know. So it's associated with violence, obviously, but it's very, it's interesting that here we are in the middle of, you know, as this huge change in society is occurring with our Saturn-Pluto conjunction last year, and the end of this many different cycles, one of them being 500-year cycle last year. And so we are reimagining the very foundations of ourselves, and certainly with the with women, and how we are with each other, and who are we, you know, for how can we reinvent our society where we are not in this misogynist you know, framework, which has persisted for so many centuries, and even so deeply embedded in, like, say, Greek mythology and all, like women were always being raped and, you know, killed, and it's just very, it's very heavy on women. So I just think it's really interesting that this can be, perhaps this is our time with the eclipse on this point to turn that story around, because it's like, you know, what happened with the Medusa having, you know, getting killed and having her head cut off. It's like the patriarchy won out over the matriarchy. It got flipped, right? So now we could imagine that this lunar eclipse is the reversal of that, at least part of that story. Like I said, it can happen with, you know, the Saturn-Pluto in Capricorn, reimagining things, Uranus in Taurus, reimagining you know, women and our values and our esteem as women. And then here's another piece of it, this lunar eclipse. We could look at it in that way. The medicine being Venus, the love, harmony, connection, and you know, changing this this karmic story, so to speak. It's like a feminist retelling, you could say. From maybe what the eclipse is doing is saying, okay, now we're returning to the matriarchal, from the patriarchal to the matriarchal. And maybe it's time to, especially with this lunar eclipse, is the opposition with Uranus and Mars, right? The warrior Mars, and Uranus is saying, okay, let's be warriors, but in a way that's going to not just so destructive. You know, so it's like time to change that narrative, and there's that struggle over, you know, breaking from the patriarchy. We see that so clearly. Oh, here is, and speaking of who, okay, all right, you're on camera, you little ham. We interrupt this programming to bring you. Yes, baby. Okay, this is Fluffy. Okay, honey, we're on camera. Okay, I didn't get a release form from you. You didn't put your. Oh, I know. Okay, mommy's working. No, I know, baby. Okay, sorry. Okay, yes, this is the yes and universe. We don't shut you out. We include you as part of the narrative, you see. This is a very kindly kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, so I wanted to share that with about this you know, maybe it's time for a feminist retelling, as much as in the collective we could see one facet of this being, you know, dealing with, in very real terms, our food supply and our where our resources lie, our money and resources, lunar eclipse 27 Taurus. But if we turn the jewel, so to speak, or the diamond, and look at another facet of it, we can see that perhaps given the story, this scary story around Medusa and losing her head, literally, that, you know, where do we lose our head? And maybe we can reinvent this into something more empowering. You know, like, why do we even have like guys cutting women's heads off? You know, it's just, oh my goodness, you know, this is, you know, do we have to live with this anymore? No, we don't. We get to say how it goes. So I find it also very interesting that, you know, with the movie, the Princess Diana movie that just came out, Spencer, here it is. Diana had a very prominent Algol. So I knew that, you know, something about her was going to be resurfacing at the end of the year, and it could be way more than this. We could be seeing, you know, Prince Charles and maybe the Queen like finally stepping down. You know, obviously there's all that, but I just found it very interesting that here's this movie coming out and all about her struggles as she decided the weekend that she decided to, a fictional imagining of the weekend she decided to divorce Prince Charles. So there it is again, the feminist retelling, right? So from the patriarchy that she suffered under so much, this, you know, racist colonialist patriarchy that she found herself in, and then this flip to matriarchy. So anyway, there's that, and I would say too that Algol is also affiliated, has connections with like genetic engineering or genetic experimentation. And I think about GMOs and the food supply and using technology. Sometimes technology is good, and sometimes it can be overly, you know, it's not in a healthy fashion, like genetically modified organisms being put out there. And they came out recently with like some GMO strawberry that they're going to be using frost-free, and what are the health ramifications of that in our food supply? I think about crops and the bioengineering of as something that is one of our resources. You know, what about that? What needs to change, or what are we not seeing, right? The eclipse, right? What are we in the blind? What kind of blind spot is there? You think about the COVID, the vaccinations and all. Well, with the genetic engineering being it was the very foundation of this that, you know, therapy, the gene therapy and the vaccination product. So we're wondering, perhaps there could be a change in the narrative around that, or some information that comes to light, and we're maybe perhaps seeing it in a new way, or questioning, you know, do we want to use genetic engineering in this fashion, or is there some other value that is calling us? So, you know, these are places to look. But anyway, so yeah, now I just want to finish by saying, okay, Algol, like back to Algol in the chart of Joe Biden. Not sure, but something is going to come down with Biden, and it could either be his maybe it's his health or his child, his surviving child, Hunter Biden. It could very well be one or the other of that. Let me pull up his chart here, just a second, just give me a moment. Okay, so there is the chart of Joe Biden, and the natal chart is this inner ring, and then the outer ring here are the transits. So here, as you can see, his birthday is the day before the lunar eclipse, which I find very auspicious. And this is something I talked about last year, earlier in the year, that, you know, I'm not so sure about Biden and his health. I have some concerns here, or perhaps at least contemplations. Here we see the lunar eclipse is at, let me bring up the lunar eclipse map. Here it is, okay. And as you can see here, the lunar eclipse is happening in the 6th house, and it is in opposition to Venus as well, Venus at 28. So his wife and marriage, you know, could certainly be affected. Here we see the 6th and the 12th houses are difficult houses in astrology. That's about a lot of health issues, struggle, loss, self-sacrifice, effort. We can see this clearly with everything going on in Washington now, as this power struggle around, you know, Democrats, Republicans, and getting these bills like the infrastructure bill passed, and people even squabbling amongst the party members. You know, you can see all of that happening. And so this is an example of that, but I also think that it could very well involve his health, and perhaps his, you know, especially speech and the mind, because you've got Mercury here as well, right over the Mercury and the sun. And I know when he didn't he speak with a stutter for a long time as a child? I think you would see that Mercury close to the sun, there's under the beams, difficulty with expressing and, feeling shamed about that. Well, Mercury's back and here's an eclipse and it's his birthday and he's 80. So I wonder about his health or his speech, mental thinking processes, these kinds of things coming up. Now, it may not be any of that at all. It may be just about his son, Bo, because Mars not only rules his 12th house, but also his 5th house. So as you can see in his life, where he had all that tragedy around his children and his wife, his first wife, and his baby daughter died in a car accident. And then Bo Biden died of cancer several years ago. So again, the loss of children, right? Loss and children, 5th house, 12th house, having been huge, shaped how he lived his life and having to endure all that tragedy. So I'm wondering, because Hunter last year was in the news with Biden, if you recall, all those conversations about allegations of corruption with his business dealings with, was it a Ukrainian company or something like that. So we could be seeing that resurface during this eclipse season, where things again get revealed. When you think about Venus ruling this lunar eclipse, Taurus, right? One's resources, one's personal finances in opposition to other people's money, secret business deals, it definitely speaks to that. And it could just be about Hunter, himself, or, his involvement with Hunter behind the scenes. I mean, how much of that, what is known, what's not known, what's secret, what has been secret that comes to light, are all the kinds of things that could be happening here. Just to share that, and let me see one more thing. Let me see, I will pull up Jill's chart too, because I was very intrigued by that. Okay, here is Jill's chart. And as you can see here, she is a Gemini. First lady is a Gemini. Here she's got the sun and Mars conjunct the sun. Moon is very close in Gemini. In a, this is in the 10th house, right? One's public reputation. Well, as you know, she became very famous for being a school teacher, right? She's the Gemini ruling that 10th house career. Of course, she had a career as a school teacher. But the point I wanted to make was about with this eclipse here in, this is pulled up for Washington, DC. And here we can see it's Friday. The lunar eclipse is going to be in her 9th house here. Here's the moon, right? It's right over her midheaven. And as you can see here, we've got the Uranus opposition, 3rd house, can't speak, 3rd house, 9th house. That's where, so for Joe, it's taking place in the 12th and 6th houses. For her, it's on the information axis of the 3rd and 12th house. This is where the action's taking place. So that's learning, education, very strong around education. And, she's always and continues to be very passionate about that. And here is, I think she's still working, because when he got inaugurated, she was like the first lady in history to be still working, holding down a job at a local community college. She was doing some kind of teaching somebody somewhere. So who knows, that maybe this would be the end of that. Maybe she'll put that aside. There's certainly a major chapter opening and closing for her as regards education and teaching. Here it is again. I find that what really caught my eye, to be honest with you, is vertex is, it's not in ancient astrology, but it is, vertex is this point, a fated point, and it represents a person or an event that happens. And so here we see Pluto is only 3 degrees from her vertex. Venus, by the time Venus retrogrades, it's going to be right on top of that. So, so that Venus retrograde will be very interesting. Here, let us move to that. Venus goes retrograde, and here's the chart for that. As you can see here, Pluto and Venus together transiting are right over that fated point, over the house which rules children. for one thing. So again, it could be that there is this, it could point to Hunter, you know, with Mercury in there. Mercury can be youth as well. So again, people in, you know, this is all about something at a very high place, government or CEO level dealings, right? That Capricornian theme right here in her 5th house. And at the same time that is happening, transiting vertex is right over her Venus. So transiting Venus over her natal vertex and transiting vertex over her natal Venus. Like, whoa, that's pretty wild. So 11th house, 5th house, children, friends, love affairs, leisure activities are 5th house. 11th house is one's peers and colleagues and group activities, group organizations. So these are areas that are some kind of eclipsing, some kind of new chapter beginning for Jill in that regard. The lunar eclipse, if we just go back one more minute to that lunar eclipse, as you can see here, that lunar eclipse is happening in her 9th and 3rd houses, right? So do we have it on? No, sorry. No, that's the solar. Sorry, go back one more. Blip. Search from. Okay, here we go. That lunar eclipse is 9th and 3rd. Well, 9th and 3rd houses are called declining or cadent houses. So that is about energy that is leaving and moving. And, you know, that moon is very close to going into Gemini. So that would be a change in conditions, a change, mutable. Something is going to change. And so 3rd house, 9th house, and it could be that her, you know, teaching career, maybe she ends that and, you know, focuses on helping her husband. You know, I don't wish anything on anybody, regardless of political strife, but, you know, it could be that, you know, maybe he gets sick and she needs to help him. So I don't know, I don't want to create that, but I'm just saying that there is some kind of a shift here and certainly some, you know, breakthrough. We always want to look on the bright side. These eclipses are always happening on our behalf. They are helping shape us moving forward. And how do we evolve in the light of these major changes? What is this bringing? What is this? The endings are new beginnings. And so these represent chapters in our life. So, you know, we could be seeing something, and it's also like the legal process too. So I think, you know, what if Hunter is in trouble? It's stepchildren or stepchildren, right? That's her stepson. Maybe there's some kind of legal matters or regarding contracts and legality and communication that she might become involved with. Not saying that she was part of that. I don't believe she was, but, you know, her stepchild was. So this case could be reopened regarding Hunter Biden. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say for today. And in the next edition, we will be talking probably more about the eclipse as it opens. It was interesting because the other day there was an article, it was an astronomer who talked about the fact that Algol may have more than like several stars orbiting it rather than just one. It's called an eclipsing binary because yes, Fluffy, excuse me, pardon me. Somebody's calling. And yes, I will wrap this up. The eclipsing binary is about every 2 days, almost 3 days for about 10 hours. You don't see, it's blinking. It's called a blinking star. So Algol blinks on and blinks off for about 10 hours. It's very dim. And that's when the star passes in front of it and eclipses it. And then when it comes back around again, you see Algol again. It would be interesting to see, you know, what part of that phase, and I haven't been able to find it yet. If you know, let me know. Irlianna at StarSoundAstrology.com. During the eclipse, is it going to be in that dim phase, the 10-hour dim phase, or the bright phase? So, because generals would plan battles around whether Algol was dim or not, you know, like the success of the outcome of battles was. They would use that in ancient times to determine when to go for it or not. There's that. Anyway, I think that's about all for today. Let me see, did I forget anything? God, so upstaged by that fat, fluffy cat. Yes, baby. Okay, now, he's ignoring me. He doesn't need to go out, just wanted to put his 2 cents in there. Anyway, yeah, so I hope that this information was useful to you. The lunar eclipses could be very interesting for Joe, just to say that, when Mars activates that lunar eclipse, it's going to be December 1st. And then no, sorry, not December 1st, it's December 9th. So sometimes we see energy and action being taken, and when Mars hits an eclipse point, it can often show some kind of movement going forward. So that is going to be December 9th, and Mars will be conjunct Venus December 11th. It'll conjunct, so Mercury and the eclipse point and Venus are all getting hit by Mars from December 9th, December 1st, December 9th, December 11th. So that should be, we'll see, watch and see what happens during that time period. Very fascinating to see how astrology plays out in the collective, but especially, and here it is, like that article on Algol, and of course they didn't mention anything about the fact that the lunar eclipse was conjunct. I mean, that could have been an astronomical conversation, not just astrological, but whatever. I found it interesting that the Finnish astronomer that did discover this, he's been studying this stuff for like 10 years, and he had a tattoo on his hand of the word Algol in Egyptian hieroglyphics. So he's like totally into Algol. I thought I was a nerd. No, there's other people. It's not just me. And the fact that, the Princess Diana narrative, coming out when an eclipse on her Algol, like, wow, charts can definitely speak long after somebody has passed. So we shall see. And then if anybody was a representative of the matriarchy contending with the patriarchy, many wonderful examples of goddesses out there, but man, she was one of the best. Still looking out for us, I'm sure. So anyway, that's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you next time. Thank you all for listening. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Have a great one. Bye.